And is your camera recording as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, beautiful.
Here we go.
And
We
is
are
your
live.
camera recording as well? Oh, you have a
Okay.
pin post. That's what's going on. Okay, let me share it to the
Under the pin
group.
post.
That's right.
Hello to anyone who is watching. Anyone who might be online right now.
And I'll do another share. So stand by. Share now.
Stand by. We are starting in 5, 4.
Welcome, welcome. We're here today with Damien Bohler, who is going to be one of our presenters, one of our guest speakers and presenters for the Journey to Secure program, an online immersion program that's happening on the 25th of January until the 29th. We have about 6 classes a day, 20 presenters, 35 sessions, and I think at this point, 8 bonus offerings, including one from Damien. Hi, Damien. It's good to see you. It's good to chat with you. We had a big, long chat just before pressing record, and it feels really good to have you with us.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Great
to be chatting again.
God, so good. My brain cells are exploding. So Damien and I have been chatting, tussling online and otherwise like sense making for the last, 3 years at this point?
Yeah, about 3 years.
And so I remember seeing one of Damon's posts. I do not remember which one it was, but I remember reading it and thinking, "Wow, this is really brilliant perspective that went beyond beyond what I thought of in a particular area." Which again, I don't remember, but I just remember being struck by the brilliance. You do?
I bet you it was the post, "A Culture of Love Addiction."
Ooh,
that was my first viral post on Facebook. That was like 3-4 years ago, something like that.
That could be it. Yeah. Anyway, I was just struck by the brilliance of what you wrote and continue to be, as I shared just before pressing record. And this is the reason why I brought you in. Not only is your stuff brilliant and on point, but you also bring the piece around attachment theory, which is, as you know, dear to my heart and to this project. So when it came time to invite presenters, you immediately came to mind, and here we are today. So yeah, having said all of that, I would love to hear your story of how attachment theory came to be part of your life, like more in a deeper way than I know in the ways that you've posted. So I'd love to hear more.
I mean, the story is like, I'm sure most people who come to this work, one of pain, one of extreme pain and challenge. I struggled to relate to the opposite sex. I'm heterosexual. I love women. From a young age, I experienced very early rejection, and I was a late bloomer. I started dating very late. I started having sex very late. And I was always challenged in my first few relationships. I remember my first ever relationship that I got into, when it came to an end, it started degenerating. At first it was wonderful and beautiful, and it started degenerating, and I lost it. When it ended, I lost it. I think I cried myself to sleep for like a year straight. Wow. You know, I was in an extreme, I was in my, early to mid 20s, and had no idea about dysregulation or triggers or any of that stuff. But I was in distress. I was in despair. I remember at the time I used to have a friend who would come over, a male friend, and he would just stay the night at my house, and he would just be in my space, and I was just a constant mess, and I think that was my first experience of what it was like to have someone there. And then later I had other relationships, and then struggled with rupture and coming back together and breaking up, and then those relationships ended, and the same kind of experience of taking a long time to get over an extreme dysregulation happened. And at one point, some years ago now, I stumbled upon attachment theory, and I started reading it, and I have a very inquisitive mind, and whenever I grab something, I'm like, okay, I go as deep as I possibly can into it. I dive into it, and then I start immersing myself into it. And I came across attachment theory and codependence and love addiction and all of these terms. And it was like, oh, this makes sense of my experience. I suddenly started understanding what my experience was, why I was finding it so hard to maintain relationship, and why I was struggling so hard when relationships ended. And so I dove in and I started to understand that. I even went to university and started doing a master's in psychotherapy and went even more deeper into the academic side and also the, the practical side of healing it as well. Largely self-motivated, being like, I want to have relationship in my life. I decided a long time ago that I want to spiritually awaken inside of relationship. I want relationship to be a spiritual awakening path to me. But if I can't even maintain a relationship without being triggered all the time, without getting anxious all the time, good luck. There's no chance of having that. So I realized that this was an important thing for me to understand, heal, and master. And that's really been my journey with it.
Wow, beautiful. Yeah, and I think listeners will be able to relate to having difficult relationships and sometimes falling apart and being a mess and or shutting down. So yeah, it's beautiful to hear your story because it's not only a common one, but it's one that people want to get out of, or they want the success at the end of the tunnel or the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and the cool thing is it's possible. Like that's the beautiful thing about attachment and attachment theory is that when we understand it, it's like we have to understand it from the perspective of not pathologizing ourselves.
Mhm.
It's not a map to pathologize ourselves and the people we date and relate with. You're avoidant, you're
Right.
anxious, you're this, you're that. We're not using it that. We're using it to develop awareness and start to map our own healing path out. And
Mm.
that's in the nervous system. It's retraining and repatterning our nervous system from one that is wired for an incomplete bonding experience to one that is capable of bonding or attaching with another person
Mhm.
in a way that's comfortable, that knows I'm okay, you're okay, I'm safe, you're safe. We can be different and together. That's kind of what
Mm.
we can say internally when we're secure. And we can do that.
Right.
But we just have to literally repattern our nervous system. And our nervous system is great because it does that. It's neuroplastic. You give it new stimulus over time and it remolds itself to that stimulus. Understand
Mhm.
what you're doing with attachment, apply yourself over time, you become secure. It's a repeatable and predictable process if we apply ourselves to the process, which is why I love Journey to Secure. It's a journey.
Yeah, it's definitely a journey of 1,001 steps. I would like to
Yeah.
say it's
Yeah.
it's not the sort of thing that you can be done with within a year or 6 months. There's no quick solutions. If growing up with a particular attachment style or a coping mechanism template, as I like to call it, if that came from the time you were a baby, then to shift that and transform that into something else will definitely take a hot minute
Yeah.
or two.
Yeah. Yeah. I
um,
mean, the literature says once you're actively working on your secure attachment, it's a 2 to 5 year process of
that's what I
consistently
heard.
engaging, and that may, and the first year, the first 6 months to a year, once you get over the new relationship energy that they talk about, once you get over
Mhm.
that hump, and the new relationship energy is like, we, I'm in a new relationship, everything's amazing, everything's
I'm
wonderful, we're
high.
completely healed. I'm so healed. Let's
That's
run
right.
workshops together, and then
Oh
you
my
hit the bump,
god.
and then you like,
Mhm.
oh God, we are in
Right.
pain and we are
Right.
struggling and we are challenging because our attachment
Mhm.
system comes online. And once we start bonding with the person, we start enacting all our unconscious shadow material. And so we have to
That's right.
literally start cleaning it up. So the first year is probably pretty uncomfortable. And then some traction comes and it's no longer as painful. And the sense making, the mutual sense making with a willing partner becomes more and more tangible,
Mhm.
and it becomes more and more easeful, but it takes time, and then we
Mhm.
continue to apply ourselves.
How,
Yeah.
how far you're in with your new relationship?
We're hitting about year and a half in our
Yeah,
relationship that we've been together.
beautiful.
We definitely hit the start was really beautiful, and
Mhm.
we approached the relationship from a very intentional, realistic
Mhm.
place of knowing what we were entering.
Mhm.
And we went slow enough at the beginning to not ride too high, to not shoot up to the
Right.
moon, knowing that there's a crash on the other side. So We made sure that we had lots of time apart in the early parts of the relationship. We'd spend a couple of days together and then maybe not see each other for a week to 10 days at a time, and we
Like
slowly built
stretching.
up. Yeah. Yeah. And then, we've been living together for over 6 months now. And
Nice.
we've had our challenges, and we continuously navigate and heal. Every challenge is an opportunity for us to heal more deeply. And without a doubt, we feel more and more secure in our relationship.
There's something that Derek Hart said about parenting, and I think it applies to relationship, which was to actually share with your child that you've been struggling as a parent is actually a showing of how worthwhile this effort is. And a lot of people responded to that. They said, no, don't tell your child you're having a hard time as a parent. And he was like, no, you're actually showing that you're willing to make the effort. You're willing to move through the fire of it because your child is worth it.
Yeah. My partner has a 7-year-old, and we tell him when we're challenging, and he'll often kind of rise to meet it. He'll be like, okay, I need to show up better here, or something like that. I need to work with you,
Yeah. One of the things I really enjoy about you is you're one of the few people I know. There must be others out there. I see some Instagrams, like The Secure Relationship is one of them. I can't remember her name, but there's only a few people, because I remember posting about this years ago. I was like, so what's the path to secure, before Journey to Secure even became a thing? And, I got a bunch of people sending me books, but there was nothing that was really about what's the pathway? What's the, can somebody describe to me what secure is supposed to be like? Because I'm just figuring it out. And can somebody tell me how to get there? And so, of course, I still have a link to that post that I refer to once in a while, because it seemed like the world and the culture was still in the process of figuring out what that's even supposed to look like. Yeah. And now you can see it more and more. People have a sense of, this is what secure feels, this is what secure looks like, this is what the pathway. My approach is a competency ladder, as they call it, where you go from unaware insecure to aware insecure to aware plus secure, or consciously secure, and then you move into, you don't have to think about it anymore. But what I love about you is that you have your own pathway, and that's what I've been paying attention to the most, because it's one thing to say, oh yeah, here are the 15 ways that you're insecure. This doesn't give you the steps to move towards secure. So I'd love to hear more about that, and then I'd love to hear about your classes, because I'm sure they relate.
Well, what I think about that is, it's really cool. Is it's like, the pathway to becoming secure is going to be mapped by people who have done that journey. Someone who,
yes.
A psychologist or a researcher who is born secure, and they're naturally secure, and they're competent, and they're researching it in other people, they'll be able to kind of, articulate what they've observed, but they haven't journeyed it. It's like the journey to secure is going to be paved by people who have made the journey from the extreme discomfort into, I'm okay now. It's
That's a great quote, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm quoting you on that. It's good.
Yeah, and so that's really it, and that's what I'm, that's what I'm concerned with. It's like I'm mapping the path as I'm doing it, and it's like I have a very good sense of where I'm heading, and I'm still walking in that direction, and I'm walking in that direction with a rope behind me, or or
leaving breadcrumbs.
or like cutting a path through the jungle and being like, hey, this is actually a path, and I'm like 99.9% certain that there is an oasis we're heading towards, like,
and that people can follow you.
Yeah, people can follow me, and the beautiful thing about us culturally in the world, this is the morphogenetic field, right? I love this notion, the morphogenetic field, for those people who are listening and don't know what it means, is it's essentially like the collective paradigm. It's paradigms that we're all immersed inside of, and that are cultural norms. A morphogenetic field is a series of cultural norms. What happens is grooves take place, new trends come online, and there are early adopters and pioneers, and then you have late adopters, and then you have the masses that come through, and then it becomes part of the culture. Right. And it's almost like that. It's like the first person hacking through the jungle, right, creates a path, and then
crazy ones.
And then people start walking behind, and then the path gets more grooved in. And once enough people have walked a path through the jungle, nothing grows on that path anymore. The soil gets so compacted that path becomes clear. You know, if you leave it too long, stuff might grow over the top of it, but the actual path is still there. And you have more and more and more people walking that path. The path will widen. Now you have people bringing vehicles across, and then, okay, we need to build a road here. So we've got a dirt road, and now we need to pave the road. And now we have a groove in the field that is
beautiful,
consistent, you know. And ideally, those of us who are, you know, I'd say we're in the second wave. We're not the most early adopters of this path, but we're still in the late early adopters, you know, of walking this path of secure. We are creating a pathway for others to follow so that our cultural paradigm ideally becomes one that is more secure, and we have a more secure world. And so when we do this work, we're not just doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for ourselves in a way of like, okay, my relationships get better and I'm not in so much pain and suffering anymore, but also my children's relationships are going to be better as a result. And the world is going to be better as a result. We're going to have a more secure world.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And now the new wave that's coming is it's all the nervous system stuff, at least the way I've seen it. You know, initially it was attachment theory and the coping mechanisms, which is still valid, but it's it's a very sophisticated view on on top of something that's actually relatively simple yet complex, which is our nervous system and how we interact with the world and how trauma plays into that.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's like, so you asked me a bit about my model, and I'm like, you know, there are aspects of it that have been mapped out pretty well, and there are aspects that I'm still coloring in. You know, it's like, but definitely, yeah, exactly. Learning to regulate ourselves is a massive part of this. You know, learning to regulate ourselves, you know, or self-soothing or self-regulation, and then learning to regulate and repair with our partner and sense make. You know, and then another big part of that, you know, and this might be as far as I go right now, is starting to develop counterintuitive behaviors. You know, our attachment patterns seem so intuitive, but they're intuitively destructive. You know, like they're intuitive, and we do them without any effort. We enact dysfunctional behavioral patterns when it comes to an attachment without any effort. The moment you take your foot off your consciousness, it's like you're gonna play out a destructive pattern, and it's intuitive, and it will make sense. It will make sense for me as an anxious person to pursue an avoidant partner, and it will make sense that if someone is anxious, for me to go, ooh, I don't want to be near that, right?
Yeah, it's also adaptive. It's also adaptive at a nervous system. To me, that's why it's intuitive. You just do it without thinking.
Exactly. And it will make sense for me to be hyper vigilant to the level of responsivity to someone I'm dating. Are they responding to my text immediately? If not, danger, I need to get their attention. That's intuitive.
Yes.
From a dysfunctional nervous system. So I have to I literally have to repattern intuition. If our nervous system is dysfunctional, our intuition is wrong. It's off base. Our compass is not pointing north, it's pointing northeast. And we think that's north, but we're, you know, 2 degrees of deviation, and you end up somewhere completely different.
After years, of course. And with the people you end up with as well.
Yeah.
It's go ahead. I'll let you finish.
And so I wanted to say, like, we need to start doing counterintuitive behaviors that make more sense from a logical, rational, realistic frame, which can seem at the beginning to be the opposite of what we want. We want passion, and we want to be lost in the moment and everything. And it's like, we can actually have that, but we need to have it from a framework that is realistic, not a framework of belligerent unconsciousness, because we're just going to end up in the same thing again. You know, and so for example, is if I'm more anxious, my counterintuitive pattern is to actively not think about the person I'm in relationship when I'm not next to them, to actively pursue hobbies and interests outside of the relationship, to actively maintain my friendship groups and a wide friendship group. And if I'm in early stages of dating, to keep my options open. And just because I like someone, to not shut the door until they've actually proven that they're going to be a partner that might meet me and where I want to go. That's what I do as an anxious. As an avoidant, it's an entirely different set of behaviors.
Totally. And you know, and you basically learn to develop trust at a pace that is realistic instead of too fast or too slow.
Yeah. We go, another quote I like is, we go at the pace of our nervous system, you know, and our nervous system is the state of regulation. If I'm starting to get triggered into anxiety or avoidance, I'm going too fast. Slow down.
Yeah, I wanted to say that the rational and logic is one of the, because I'm going to do a class also which is about the superpowers of secure, and one of, or the qualities of secure, and one of them is, you know, being rational and logical, which doesn't mean overly so, but to have the ability to look at things like, oh, let's look at this with a clear mind.
Yeah.
And so that was great. And then you spoke of developing the skills of regulation and also sense making. Which to me, you know, the three pillars that I bring to the table as this path to secure, which is not a specific path, but it's three different pillars, and one of them is self-regulation, one of them is self-resourcing and sense making, and the third one, which I think is related to what you were speaking of, which I call self-care, is doing behaviors that are actually supportive of a regulated nervous system, that is supportive of self-esteem, and supportive of better behavior that's more supportive of a well-regulated and healthy life.
Yeah, it's kind of like having a healthy diet. You know, it's like if I eat junk food all the time, am I going to be surprised when I'm out of breath, feel, you know, got heartburn constantly, I'm overweight and have no energy? No, I mean, that's what I'm feeding myself. If I'm feeding myself with dysregulating experiences and circumstances, well, there's no surprise that I'm going to be constantly on edge. It's like, so I have to self-care. I have to create an environment that is going to support the health of my nervous system.
Yeah, we all know what it's like to be hangry, or at least we've seen children who get in that state where you can't think straight because you haven't had enough food.
Get there too.
Oh yeah, that happens. For me, it tends to be more like I get confused and I can't think anymore. But sometimes I do. My son, on the other hand, we've had to teach this to him until almost 11. Okay, we could talk about this for so long, and I'm so high from the conversation already. So I would love to hear about the classes you're going to be teaching, and also I would love to hear about this bonus offering you're bringing to the table, because it's relevant to this conversation.
So I've been big for anyone who's, you know, watching on my wall, and I've been talking about regulation for, you know, couple of months now, actually, you know, obviously related to this program, one of the flagship programs I offer, Regulate. And so that's really what I'm bringing, because I've been so immersed in that. That's just kind of my larger framework. And it's almost like I'm going to need a little bit of time to like pivot into other contexts. So I'm bringing offerings to the table around regulation largely. And, the first class I'm going to do is called Archetypes of Dysregulation, which is a somatic embodied exploration of trigger patterns in our body. And, you know, one of the premises that I hold is we need to develop our awareness of our patterns in order to transcend them. If I don't know what patterns I'm playing out, good luck. You know, I don't know what I'm doing.
How do you know when it's happening?
How do I know what I'm doing? So I need to understand what are my patterns of triggering? What do I do when I'm triggered? In order to see myself in a trigger, I need to have enough awareness when I'm triggered to see myself in a trigger in order to snap out of it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to map that through the body at a very somatic, visceral level. It's a very embodied, hands-on workshop. It's not theory. It will be experiential. And the second offering is Rupture and Repair. And this will be more about relating. It'll be more about how do we create repair and sense making with a partner, with someone that we're working with. How do we move from the rupture into repair? So one of the things that we've got to get over on this path and kind of release the shame around is that we're going to have ruptures. We're just going to have them on the path to secure, on the path of relationship. Even if you're secure, you're going to have ruptures. A relationship is full of ruptures because we've got two independent sovereign beings trying to navigate a life together with different needs and desires and wants. And enough of them are overlapping to the point where we're like, oh, this would be a good idea to move together, to make a family together, to live together. But we're still going to be different, and I can't control them and they can't control me, and we're different. So it's like we're going to have ruptures. We're going to have places where our needs and our desires and won't meet each other, and we'll have conflict around them, and we'll get triggered about each other and so forth. And what they show in attachment studies, it's less about the rupture and more about the repair. If you have enough repair and the repair is good enough, then you can start to foster secure. And the opportunities to create secure patterning is actually what happens in the repair process. and how we navigate the rupture too. It's like quite important that when we're in the rupture, we try not to yell out too much obscenities and say horrible things about our partners, because they can create scars. And then in the repair is, how do we drop the resentment for the misbehaviors that we did to each other? And how do we apologize and feel genuine remorse without shame? You know, it's like, that's an important process. Can I feel remorse for my actions without self-shaming? You know, once I can do that, I can heal. You know, shame actually blocks my heal. You know, shame is a way of martyring myself, and it's a subtle victimhood process. So that's what I'll kind of be doing in the second workshop. And the bonus offering for everyone who registers will have access to this, you know, this program that I've put together called Centered. It was a free offering that I did as part of the Regulate campaign. It's called Simple Tools to Untrigger Your Life. And it's just a series of very basic somatic tools that you can bring in the moment to create more space in a trigger. And healing triggers or coming out of triggers is really about creating space. We need to create space between the experience that's happening right now and, you know, our state. And so how do we create more of that space through some really simple but powerful somatic tools? Yeah.
You had a big response for that, to that. How, didn't you? Like, it was 2,500 people just showed
over
up.
3,000.
No? Wow, even better. Oh my God, that's awesome.
The amount of people who went through that, I'm not quite sure, because I put a time limit on it and I closed it, you know, and I did that to encourage people to go through it rather than have one of these things that's always sitting there, those open loops, you know, rather like you either jump in or you miss it. And if you miss it, that's okay. You can now let go of it, you know, rather than keep it as this open loop that you're going to get to one day. Actually, we want to close those loops. Those open loops create stress on our nervous system. So I am going
just like clutter, right?
It's just clutter. It's like stuff in your bedroom that you'd like to put away, but you never get to, you know, or old clothes you want to throw out. It is going to become available as a low-cost offering in the future as well. But if you want to get it now, it's a bonus as part of this Journey to Cure.
Beautiful.
Which is a great price, by the way, for what you're offering. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, we've been advertising it for $147. But if you watch this far, or you watch the replay, I'm going to go add it right now. If you put in Damien's secret code in one word as the discount code, you'll be able to come in for $97. So yeah, if you're here for the work, and also speaking of dangling pieces, we are going to record all the classes. We're going to allow the participants to watch it for up to 6 months. And part of the reason for this is, at least from where I'm sitting, this is long-term work. And so what we're going to do is, for all the participants, we're going to send them an email a week that says, here's a class maybe you didn't watch, so you get a chance to watch this one during the week, maybe get a hold of the presenter, work with them. So there'll be opportunities for additional connection and continuing this path that people will have to do for a while if they're serious about becoming secure.
I love the care and attention that you're putting towards it. Sounds very secure. That sounds secure to me. It's like, oh, you're actually going to support me in going through this process and not make me have to search it all out. You're going to make it available to me. That sounds really lovely. I like that a lot.
It's funny because as you were saying that, I was like, yeah, we're supporting each of the presenters in how you're going to be showing up. Like, we want your nervous system to be regulated as well as the participants. So whatever it is that we need to do to be in support of you, if money is an issue, get a hold of me or get a hold of Damien. Otherwise, we're super excited to have you, and we'll be there. Many of the presenters will be there to watch the classes by the other presenters as well, not just as an act of support, but just to geek out and learn just like everybody else.
Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here, and thanks for your work. All right, we'll see you in a few days.
Yeah, definitely. Now I will hit stop live stream.
Same here.